Welcome to the Veterinary Rehabilitation Podcast, where we aim to help fellow veterinary rehab therapists increase their knowledge and elevate their practice. I'm Megan Kelly.
And I'm Ané Lloyd. Together, we bring you the latest insights, research, and information in the field of veterinary rehabilitation.
This podcast is brought to you by Onlinepethealth, a leading continuing education membership for veterinary rehabilitation therapists. With Onlinepethealth, you will have access to a wide range of online resources to help you stay up to date with the latest techniques, advances, and trends in the industry.
Our podcast features in-depth conversations with leading experts in veterinary rehabilitation. They share their own experiences and knowledge to help you improve your practice. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out in the field, our goal is to provide you with the tools and the insights you need to succeed.
So join us as we explore the exciting world of veterinary rehabilitation and help you take your practice to the next level. Hey Vet Rehabbers, as the year winds down, the Onlinepethealth team and I want to take a moment to wish you all a Merry Christmas and an upcoming New Year filled with prosperity and success. As we reflect on 2023, we are so proud of the incredible milestones that we've achieved at Onlinepethealth. We are still soaring from the success of the Vet Rehab Summit. We saw a phenomenal turnout with a record-breaking 4,953 registered attendees from 81 different countries. It's really heartening to see the global impact of our community. In addition to the summit triumph, we also embarked on a monumental task, publishing our first ever Vet Rehab Industry Report. So it turned out to be even more significant undertaking than we had anticipated, but the results were 100% worth the effort. So over the next few months, we'll be delving into the report's findings and various podcasts offering deeper insights into the trends and discoveries that surfaced. So if you want to grab yourself a copy of that Vet Rehab Industry Report, you can go to onlinepethealth.com/report. Thank you for being an integral part of this journey, and here's to more successes, learnings, and shared accomplishments in the coming year. Before we head over to my chat with Ané, a quick word from our sponsors. Curicor Vet's founder and CEO, Dr. Nada Robinson, has been teaching science-based integrative medicine for nearly 25 years. She first developed her courses at the Colorado State University, where she started the Medical Acupuncture for Veterinarian Certificate program in 1998. In so doing, Dr. Robinson developed a science-based platform for veterinary acupuncture, the first of its kind. Today, Curicor Vet offers a comprehensive curriculum in integrative medicine with a rational, evidence-supported foundation. Courses include medical acupuncture, photomedicine, botanical medicine, medical massage, and integrative rehabilitation. You can discover Curicor Vet at curicor.org. So cheers to a festive season and an exciting new year ahead. Join Ané and I as we reflect on 2023. Hey Ané, thank you so much for joining me. I cannot believe that it is a year since we sat down and did a podcast like this, because we always do this at the end of the year, right? We do a Christmas podcast and a New Year's podcast.
It has been a year since we've recorded together. I actually didn't even think of that, Meg. It's crazy.
I know we had all these plans. Do you remember every time we do this, we say we should do this more, and then we just did it. So
because it's fun. It's really awesome to actually sit and record together and do podcasts together, and then we don't.
So in 2024, we are going to do some more podcasts together. All right. So I'm going to say it now.
What we did do is we did much more Facebook Lives together this year. That was good.
Yeah. Always good. So today we're going to chat about reflections on 2023. I'd really like to sort of chat about Onlinepethealth. I'd like to chat about personally for you and I, because it has been an amazing year. I can't even believe we're at the end of the year now, but it has been an incredible year, and there are lots of new things that have happened and lots of new things that we've done and lots of challenges. So let's start off with your reflections for yourself. What are the high points for you for 2023?
I think you're right. It's been a massive year, both for OPH and personally, but definitely my highlight has been the summit, and I'm really glad post-summit I can say that. I have to be honest, it was stressful coming into this one, more so than previous years, but it was amazing. So what I loved about it, honestly, is the response that we had from the community and that's always a really big thing, is just anything we do where the community rallies together, and where we come together is amazing. And the summit this year completely did that. In addition to obviously talking about fascia and learning about the myofascial lines, I don't think I'm ever going to get tired of that subject, because it's really complicated, it's difficult to understand, and there's so much to it. So we've just scratched the surface, and I love that. And I love how, different practitioners have different perspectives. So for Vibke and Rika, it's focusing on the chains, and for other practitioners, it's focusing more on like the structure and the function of the different kinds of fascia and the different areas of the fascia. And that brings different techniques and different perspectives, and that's really exciting, but it can be confusing to sort through. So that was a very big highlight for me, both clinically with my patients, with Online Pet Health, with our community. That was my biggest thing. What about you, Meg?
Yeah, so I think for me, it's a combination of the two. Vet Rehab Summit's definitely up there, and I'd love to actually chat more about it, because I'd love to share actually the journey of this myofascial topic, because it's been a long one, right?
Yeah.
So let's actually dive into that. So for those of you that are listening, like, this has been a topic that Ané has been wanting for so long, and we have been trying to get it to work, and we had actually tried to organize it as a series. So, and that didn't work out. And I remember, Ané chatting to me at the beginning of the year about this. We were like, maybe this could work for Vet Rehab Summit. And it was very different to the ones that we've normally organized, because if you think about it, we normally have multiple lectures. So to have just 2 lectures, and we had so much that we could learn, and so we decided to make it 2 days, which is also very different. So there were lots of different things this year for Vet Rehab Summit. And for me, it was a little bit of a worry. I thought, well, we're changing the whole formula up here, right? We're not doing it like we normally do, but it was absolutely amazing. And for me as a vet, what I want to say is that it actually was quite a mind shift. And, in the lead up to Vet Rehab Summit, I had started to do a lot more learning and preparation. And it's such a mind shift for a vet, because we literally were taught you just cut the fascia away so that you can look at the muscles. The fascia was something that was a bit of an irritation, because we couldn't look at the nerves, muscles, and everything in anatomy. Nothing was ever said about it. Like, it really was. So when you come in now and you're like, now actually realize that this is actually so integral to everything in the body, and it's so connected with everything. You have to really change the way that you think. And so that, I think, for me, was a big, big change, and I think it's still something that I'm working on, because, we didn't learn that way. So it's like, and when you learn something and your thought process is what it is for 20 years, and then you suddenly get this, oh, but it isn't, and this is actually, and then you're like, whoa, what is going on here? So for me, that was a really big, and actually, when I was at the Vet Rehab Summit, I was hosting the VIP room, and in the VIP room we had a little chat. I had a number of veterinarians that actually came on to come say hi to me, and these were the conversations that we were having. They were like, whoa, like, this is like completely blowing my mind a little bit. And I'm actually, it's sort of like a little bit of a confused feeling. You just sort of like, how do I actually fit this all together? But what we did actually chat about, which is actually amazing, is that, when we were actually practicing as veterinarians in rehab, there always wasn't these puzzle pieces, that things were not fitting, and a lot of people were like, oh, actually, I think the puzzle is just fitting together now. Like, I'm actually getting it. Like, it's just been this, okay, this is how everything fits together. So yeah, I think that for a lot of people, Vet Rehab Summit was really a aha moment for them. And especially, I can say, from the veterinarians from our side, because I think you guys as physios, you veterinary physios, you learned about fascia, so this is not 100% new for you.
I mean, yes, and also no, like, we're still learning about anatomy from the perspective of the foundation phase of learning anatomy is origin, insertion of the muscle, like so bones, all your bony prominences, all the different things on the bones, and then your muscles, origin, insertion, innervation, function, right? And you're learning muscle unit by muscle unit separately. And then I don't know. I think maybe the anatomy learning has updated in the last. How long has it been since I've qualified? It's almost 10 years. Not quite, but I think we're at like 6 or 7 years or 8. I don't know. It's been a long time. So maybe updated. Let's not think about that. But we still learn about it like that, unit by unit, innovation, etc. And then even with the nerve pathways, I would say that's really relevant to think about the pathway and where, because it's encased in fascia everywhere it goes, and that needs to be able to move and slide. I do think what's important is that we still think of fascia as, for me, I still have this thought, okay, we say fascia, and then we're talking about this loose connective tissue, like the areolar tissue. But fascia includes our tendons, the epimysium and perimysium of the muscles, the mesentery, all of the things that we are actually familiar with, that are not muscle. So it's much broader than just the loose connective tissue or the superficial fascia. And in some places we are very familiar with it, like the crural fascia and the thoracolumbar fascia, because those are muscle insertion points. And when you dissect a horse, you cannot but stare at that thoracolumbar fascia in absolute awe, because it's so beautiful, and you can see the different directions of the fibers and the different directions of force transmission. And it just, for me, that's always a big thing in a dissection, is just the admiration for that thoracolumbar fascia. And the crural fascia, like I think it's so interesting, because it just, so many things are coming together around the stifle. There's more there that we're not talking enough about. I still think so. And there's more there in terms of the balance of forces and how the different muscles are acting. And I think it has something to do with the frequency of cruciate ligament ruptures in dogs that we're definitely not fully understanding yet. And that's very exciting to me, because if it is, the fascia can change, and we can make changes there. And if that is an effective way to work with a cruciate ligament, then that, I think that's exciting, but I have no idea. It's just a theory for me.
That's the cool thing, is that we're learning so much, so there's so much to learn still. I mean, I think, I qualified for my CCRP in 2005, and the changes that have happened in the vet rehab world is just unbelievable. I mean, there's always new stuff. So, I mean, and it really fits in with our never stop learning on Onlinepethealth's motto. Vet rehab is never stop learning, because that's really what we do. And us at Onlinepethealth, we really are those people. So we all just want to learn and want to be a sponge and learn so much. So, one of the things, obviously, with this never stop learning, and we've chatted about this a few times, and we actually dealt a little bit with it at one of the Vet Rehab Summits. I can't remember if it was last year or the year before. I think Amy Hesback did a lecture on it, and it was identifying knowledge gaps. And what I really want to, was it at that one? Yeah, the excellence one. Yeah, you're right. It was last year. Yeah. And last year's Vet Rehab Summit, all about excellence. What I really want to challenge the listeners is to think about, where you need to learn, because it's quite easy sometimes just to go along and learn what you're learning, but not actually identifying where your knowledge gaps are. And we actually have this lecture in the Onlinepethealth in our memberships. And so if you are interested, we will put the link to that inside the show notes. For those of you that are Onlinepethealth members, you'll be able to access those. But I think it's important that we know where we need to learn. And, for me, the fascia was an obvious one. When that was a topic, I was like, oh my gosh, this is a massive knowledge gap for me. So are there any knowledge gaps that you've identified this year that you'd like to share with us?
Oh my goodness. I think this is Meg, I honestly think talking about knowledge gaps is a difficult conversation because I think there are two sides to it. On the one hand, I've really identified with a lot of vet rehabbers that we share this feeling of something is missing. I have this missing, there's something missing in my knowledge that could make all the difference to this patient. There's some skill that I don't have that I need to be able to work with my patients. So in a way, it's very much programmed into us that there's something missing and we have this gap in our knowledge or skills that we need to fill. And for a lot of us, I mean, that is absolutely an insecurity. It's us doubting ourselves, doubting our abilities, doubting what we know and what we are capable of. And that's obviously not ideal. But when we flip that and we say, and we use that in a positive way, in a continual pursuit of knowledge and understanding, and we put some boundaries in place for ourselves so that we're not doubting ourselves and we're not second guessing ourselves, then it can be a really powerful and positive tool. So yeah, like I said, this is actually hard for me to talk about because it is something that I struggle with and that I don't necessarily know that I have the right answers for. But when you take this feeling of something is missing, it can manifest itself in us jumping onto the bandwagon with every new tool, every new modality, every new trick, every person who knows how to market themselves and say, I have this great method, the something method, and then we all want to learn it. And I know that feeling. I am that person. I am that vet rehabber, and so many of you are as well. But what happens is then we just jump from one bandwagon to the next, to the next, to the next, and that can be very confusing, and it can be very difficult for us to then make clinical decisions because we've gone too superficially into too many things, right? So I think it's very important when we're assessing whether we want to learn a new skill or a new technique or a new thing, what is the evidence for it before we jump on the bandwagon? And there isn't always going to be evidence. And this is the problem with this kind of first step, is that there isn't always evidence. But if there isn't actual evidence, are there case studies? Are there, what are other people saying about it? Not just what this person is saying, but what are the other people saying about the new technique or modality? And then it's really important to be, not just looking at the company, if we're looking at a modality, not just looking at the company's reviews and things, but actually people who are using it, and then what owners are saying, et cetera, et cetera. So we need to create some steps for ourselves to prevent us from going insane, doubting ourselves all the time, and just jumping onto the bandwagon. That's important. And so that's something I like about the topic of fascia, is that it feels a little bit like it could be one of those things where we're just jumping onto a new bandwagon, a new thing. But fascia has a lot of evidence. Like, there's a lot of research that has gone into understanding the fascia over years. I mean, 10, 20, 30 years, people have been researching the fascia. It's not new. The way that we're understanding and interpreting it, yes, that's a little bit new. And the way that we're bringing that perspective is a little bit new. What I also love is that so many of the techniques that, Vibke and Rika were talking about, the assessment and the treatment techniques, are techniques we are already using. We're just changing our perspective on what they're doing and how they're working within the body. And that's amazing, because how often do we use something because it works, but we're not sure why it's working? What are the different mechanisms, right? Like T-touch is one of those things where it's just like, well, I'm making these little circles and I'm using really light pressure. I can literally see the patient changing in front of me. So it is doing something, but what? What are we doing? So it's really interesting coming from that perspective, and making sure that we question ourselves and question the person. If it's someone who's teaching a new technique, how open are they to criticism, to different opinions, to different thoughts? So that is the one side, right, where it can be driven by insecurity. And I think a lot of us are in that space, right? We already feel like we have a knowledge gap, and it manifests in insecurity, and then this kind of manic pursuit of knowledge or of new things, right? The magic wand that's going to fix our patients. So that's the one side. And then the other side, there are some of us who are very confident in what we do. I wish I was one of those people, because I feel like their lives must be much easier. They're really confident. They know what they do works. They trust the knowledge that they've gained. They trust their education, and they're solid. And they just go day to day doing the same things, repeat. It works pretty well, so they're happy. And generally, they're really good at selling themselves as well. So they have patients, they have full clinics, they're doing the thing, and it's great. The risk with that is that they get stuck in a rut, right? They do the same thing every day. It does work, but nothing works all the time, right? And there are always patients who challenge us to think deeper, go deeper, and change our approach. It's why having multiple tools in your toolbox is so valuable, because not every patient responds to everything. There isn't one magic wand. So the risk with if you're a very confident person who really trusts what you do and really believe in what you do, I think that's a superpower, honestly. So please hear that in what I'm saying. I wish I was like that. But the risk is that we're not continuing to learn and to grow our skill set. And that is important, because new research is being published in our industry all the time. The way that you use your TENS machine or your thoracic machine or your ultrasound machine might change, because research supports a different use for that modality for a specific condition. So it is critical as a professional, no matter how confident or how doubting you are, that you maintain your continuing education. And it's why I think Onlinepethealth actually has the ideal structure in terms of providing continuing education, because we're learning from multiple lecturers around the world all the time. We're focusing on on the things that work, as well as some interesting and novel things. So when people start talking about cupping and they want to understand what cupping is, and does it work and doesn't it work, and is there evidence, we cover that and we go through that. Is it an evidence-based modality? No. Could there be some grounds for its use? Yes. Is there evidence published about it? Yes, there is. Does it support the way that we're using it? No, not yet. Does it mean we shouldn't be using it? We don't know. Let's ask the question. Let's have the conversation. I do think that's why this structure is so valuable. It prevents us from jumping onto any bandwagon. We're continuing to learn month after month, right? We can dive more deeply into specific subjects that we're unsure about. For example, let's say, I'm really interested in understanding why cruciates are going the way that they're going. And I want to understand the fascial components. So I'm going to go into the library. I'm going to watch all the webinars that we have on hind limb lameness and pathology. And then I'm going to go and watch the Vet Rehab Summit and understand my fascial kinetic lines. And the deeper I want to go, the deeper I can go. I can go listen to our interviews on the subject. I can buy the book. So it completely depends how deep I want to dive. I can just watch the lectures, or I can take a deep dive. So yeah, I do think that we have the ideal structure in terms of continuing education exactly for that reason, because whether you're super confident in your knowledge and you just want to maintain your continuing education, then you do that through the Onlinepethealth membership. And when you dedicate specific hours every month to learning, it will highlight where you have knowledge gaps. So if you watch a lecture that highlights a specific area that you're unsure of, that's how you highlight that, right? It doesn't necessarily have to come your patients, it can come through a lecture, or it can come through your patients and then be filled by a lecture that we have. And if you're on the other side, like where I am, where I doubt myself and I always want to jump on the next bandwagon, then you limit yourself and you say, this is where I'm going to do my learning. And then when there's something that you say, I want to know more about that, you can go deeper into that. But instead of always having your brain bouncing around, doubting yourself, you can just put some boundaries in place by being an Online Pet Health member and saying that this is how I get my learning. Someone else gets to make the decisions about what works and doesn't work and is good and bad, what I should and shouldn't be learning and focusing on. And that can be really helpful, really helpful. So does that answer the question?
It was a long answer. I was actually asking you what you have identified as your knowledge gaps, but I love the way that you actually broke that down into the two different types of vet rehabbers, because I think that is so true. And what I want to say to those of you that doubt yourself, we all have those feelings. And I think that that confident vet rehabber that you talk about also has those feelings. They just don't show it and they come across confident, because, you know, if somebody had to look at me when I was at practice, they would have said I was that confident vet rehabber. So, and I was that person who came across, because I didn't want to show anybody that I had any weakness whatsoever. I didn't know anything. But I can tell you there were many times when I would be in my consult room, especially in the early days, and I would run out, go to my office, get my textbook. Oh my gosh, what do I do? What is going on here? So yeah, so just know that, all of you guys, we all have those moments, okay? All have those moments where we doubt ourselves and we're not sure. But Ané, I think one of the things that's really come out from what you're chatting about, and this is something that I've actually learned about myself over this year. So I'm an avid reader. I love reading books. And a lot of the books that I read are in the business scheme of things and the marketing scheme of things. And what happens is I read these books and I'm like, wow, this is awesome. And I just get all of that information. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to put this into action. And then I have like a little bit of a plan from the book. And then I start sort of implementing some of the things, and I take little bits and I see the results. But actually what happens is, like later on, sometimes a year or two later, I might be having a conversation with another entrepreneur and they were like, oh, the one thing I loved about this book. And I'll go, yeah, I read that book. And they'll say, well, what I learned from there is what I'm doing. And then I'd be like, oh yeah, I remember that. Why am I not doing that? And then I'd be like, I don't understand. Why didn't I implement that? And what I realized, and this has taken me many, many years to actually realize, and it's not just through books, it's through webinars, it's through any learning that you have. If you don't have a process to try and implement what you've learned, what happens is you just slip back into your older ways. So if you learn something new, you need to have a system to implement that, to change that habit into a new one, or to remember, that's what I'm going to do now, and try and see if it works. And if it works, but sometimes when you have learning, and a book is a prime example, there's just this, whoa, this is all this information. And sometimes it's actually too much to implement straight away. And I think that's actually what happens, is that you only implement a few things, but you sometimes miss out on all the great stuff. And I think it differs for everyone. But I just think to be cognizant of the fact that whatever you learn, have some system for yourself. And even to go back on that, so like one of the things that I do now is I actually WhatsApp myself. So it sounds crazy. So if I'm reading a book, so I'm usually reading it on Kindle on my phone, or I'm listening to it on Audible, then what I'll do is I'll go into my WhatsApp, and then I will quickly write whatever it is and whatever page number it was. Like, this is an important point, which I know that I'm going to need to go back on and go and have a look at again. And then I'll have sort of times where I'm like, go through my WhatsApp and I'm like, okay, I need to make to-dos, or I need to, like, everything that I put in here at the end of the week. And then I'll actually create a to-do for myself to go and revisit that, to really dive deep into it, to summarize it, and to say to myself, okay, where and how am I going to implement this now in my businesses? And that's really, 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 really helped me with my learning. And I actually wish that I learned this years and years ago, to actually implement it in a lot of my veterinary learning and a lot of my vet rehab learning, because I think it just solidifies all that information and that new, what you've learned that's new in your brain. You have to find a way to do that.
I think that's very important, Meg, because like, especially with, for example, the summit, where you're sitting for 2 days and you're just learning, it's a lot of information. And then you walk away from that and you maybe try one or two things, but because you're not being intentional about it, you slip back into the old habits and the old ways of doing things, and you miss out on a really big opportunity. And I think this is very true, especially if we have very full clinical diaries, because we do what works and we do what we know, because we're working with a patient and we're working with a client. So it isn't a great time for us to experiment and try different things. It sometimes we can and sometimes we do, but it doesn't necessarily repeat itself, because it is risky to do something with a client and with a patient that you don't know. You know, you haven't practiced the technique, you haven't practiced it and solidified what you're doing in your mind. So I think that creating that kind of system is very good. Nicola lectured on that. Nicola Kennard lectured on that at the summit. So how to take that knowledge away, and created a little bit of a system. So if you guys want that kind of system, put something together for yourself, then go watch that lecture, because I do think that was very helpful. And I think it's important to find a safe space to practice those techniques. So can you do it on your own patients? Are there, where on your own animals, I mean, is there a space where you can practice those things and solidify them for yourselves before you take them into clinical practice? Like, how do you need to do that for it to work for you and for it to carry forward? Would kind of be the question. I think that's very good, Meg.
Also, I think to identify where you will see the knowledge gaps, you know, and I thought maybe I would share for myself where I identify knowledge gaps. For me, I tell you where it's often is in a lecture or a webinar when somebody asks a question. And they'll ask that question and I'll be like, sometimes you'll be like, oh, like, I know like what that question, I know the answer. And then other times you're like, whoa, I don't know the answer to that question. And for me, that's like a big, whoa, that's a knowledge gap, you know? And I think then writing down somewhere, having a note on your phone, like at some time I need to dive deeper, because right then and there, you're not going to. But if you don't actually record it right then, you won't go and look further. Other places that I often find is in Facebook groups. So in all our communities, our small animal vet rehabbers, business vet rehabbers, hydro, equine vet rehabbers, when we're in the groups and people share information about cases, a lot of the comments, people will say things and I'll be like, oh, wow, like, I don't know how to do that, or, you know, I don't know about that. And especially when they use like abbreviations, right? And then you're like, what is that? Like, I don't know what that is. Then you go and Google it quickly. So we had that the other day, right? And so, yeah, so those are like, I think trying to work out where you pick up those knowledge gaps, and then, having a place where you can actually put that information so that you and then you go like, intently go in and have a look, okay, these are my knowledge gaps. And then if you're not a Onlinepethealth member, you just go and Google that, right? Where can I find out more information about that knowledge gap? So sometimes I don't think it has to be this whole like doubt myself. Sometimes it's just a little piece of a puzzle that you just need to fill in, that you just haven't expanded on or you haven't learned about. That's what I love about our massive library, right? Is that there is such a big library of like anything and everything that you need to know about. And so you can just quite easily go into the search function and just put that in and go, okay, I need to, learn a bit more about that specific topic, or I want to dive deeper into that.
I think that's exactly right. Like, you have to have a mindset shift where it's not about doubting yourself, it's about growing. It's really important. And I also think it's important to highlight, like, it's hard to take these deep dives or to look for knowledge or to watch webinars when we're in full clinical practice and we're running our own businesses and we're just busy all the time. I mean, I get that. It's very hard. So know that, and then make sure that your business structure is set up in a way that you're making enough profit to actually support yourself, that you don't feel like you have to run around like a lunatic, and that you schedule the time to work on yourself and on your business. Because without those components, your business becomes unsustainable anyway, and then you can't support your patients. And again, I know that because I was there. I actually, before I was working for Onlinepethealth, I canceled my subscription because I wasn't using it and I wasn't making enough money to pay for it. And that's incredibly sad, because all I was doing is driving around and treating patients all the time and not making any money, spending all my money on, maintaining my car. That's very, very sad. And it wasn't sustainable. I had to stop. So a little bit about, myself there. It's not a good place to be, but we know what that feels like and we know what that is, and you don't have to stay there. There is a way out of it.
100%. Yeah. And I think also, like, I think you have to prioritize, like what you said, I think is great, is prioritize yourself when you're learning. You cannot stay stagnant in this field. It is changing all the time. So if you think that you're going to carry on having a successful practice and everything's going to be fine without learning, you're in for a surprise. Like, you have to keep up to date and find a way that's sustainable for you, whatever it may be. But make sure that you do block off time specifically for yourself to grow, to learn, and to improve your skills.
Agreed. So Meg, you love having goals every year. What were your goals this year and what have you achieved?
Oh, I'd have to have a look and see what my goals were. I'll try and have a big think, because I should have actually had them in front here. But one thing I wanted to ask, are you doing goals now? Because sometimes you are, sometimes you aren't.
I'm not. I don't think I really did this year because I don't really like goals. I don't feel like they help me to actually achieve something. I don't know. I have this resistance, Meg. The moment I'm like, okay, I'm going to do that, then I don't. Then I do the opposite. It's very unhelpful.
So, okay, I remembered two of my goals, and I'm going to have to pull out my list because I've actually got it, but I won't be able to find it right now. So one of my goals was to learn Swedish, to keep learning Swedish. I don't know if you remember, I changed it because the year before I said I want to learn Swedish. And then I felt like, because I wasn't fluent in Swedish, that I hadn't achieved that. So I am still learning Swedish, and it is getting better. And I am a whole lot better than I was at the beginning of the year, but I'm not fluent in Swedish yet. So it'll be a continual goal for me. So yes, the learning has happened. I would say not as much as I would hoped. So I wish I could learn more, but I'm doing it. So that's all good. And then the next one is, I remember I wanted to exercise more, and I've definitely done that. So I'm happy with my exercise goals, not every single week, because I think I had like, I must exercise 3 times per week or something. So I will say that I didn't achieve it every single week. I can't tick it off every week, but definitely there is an improvement in the exercising and a little bit of time for myself. So I wanted to have more time for self-care. And that's definitely something that this year I have prioritized. I make time for myself to horse ride. So twice a week I horse ride, and that is my time. And I try and do that. Like, there's nothing else except something that's like majorly urgent, and the Vet Rehab Summit when I don't do that, So, but otherwise I made time for myself and some self-care. I think those are my main goals. And then obviously there were some online pet health goals, which I wanted to carry on helping more vet rehabbers. And I think we're pretty much, we had a goal of like 1,000 vet rehabbers. And I think that we're over that goal now. So I think we've achieved that in the membership. Was that right? Was that our goal?
No, it could be. We could definitely have done that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we definitely achieved that. Yeah, so for me, I would say I'm happy with what I've achieved. I think I definitely could have achieved more with regards to my goals, but I'm happy. And you?
No, I don't know that I have really achieved any of the goals that I non-specifically set out to achieve, but I have achieved a lot of things this year that I'm really proud of. So, or really excited about. So the one is that I'm seeing more patients, and that kind of just popped out of the blue, which is amazing because I wasn't actually setting out to treat patients, but I obviously love treating horses. So I've been seeing horses this year. I wanted to do dissections, and I did my first 2 dissections this year. So that was a big one for me. And I'm going to do more next year, but they're definitely a winter activity. So I have to wait for the winter. But I'm very excited about those. And I mean, that was definitely a big one for me, Meg, is being able to host 2 dissections. And the canine one was amazing because all the vet rehabbers in our area, not all of them, but a lot of them came together. And there's always really something special when we come together and we spend time together, especially the local guys, right? Because we have very similar challenges, and we are the ones that need to support one another here in the space. So it was great to get together with them. And my canine dissection was like a whole bunch of homeschoolers. It was very interesting. So I had a whole bunch of teenagers joining in the equine dissection. It gave it a very different energy, but it was really interesting and really valuable. And I really think that, I mean, I don't know how we should be doing dissections as professionals regularly. I mean, at least once a year, once every second year, if we can have that opportunity, because if we're not, we forget what we're looking at and what we're seeing. And every horse, every dog has its own story to tell. And that story is, it's horrible, but we get so much more information when we look at the body after their death. And that can give us a lot of information about the patients that are alive, that are in front of us. I actually had a laugh because the vet that did them with me, we were talking about anatomical variation, and she was like, there is anatomical variation, but really, is that important? And I think it is. I think it's very important, because if we have different levels of insertion of the iliopsoas or the longus coeli muscle, that makes a difference to the stability of the spine in our patient. What makes that different in different patients or in different animals? And I think that's important. So it's very interesting. Differences in the cutaneous trunci muscle, which isn't in any of our textbooks anyway. Where are you going to learn about that except in a dissection? So those were big ones for me. Yeah.
Yeah, those are amazing. I think that, you know, it's the opportunity, because a lot of people don't have the opportunity. It's not happening near them, you know. So yeah, thank you for providing that for all the vet rehabbers in South Africa. So there was great feedback from it.
Thank you. Yeah. So those would probably be my big ones. Yeah. For next year, I don't think I'm going to have goals. I do think I'm going to focus on my values and whether or not I'm moving closer towards those. I think that will be my approach. Maybe.
I just remembered my one last goal that I had.
Yeah.
So I had one. It was to learn more about social media marketing. I don't know if you remember, we chatted about that.
Done that.
Yes. And that I really, really, really have done. So yeah, social media marketing is forever changing. And I know that you're just as frustrated as I am about it, because we are like, this is what we're doing. Okay, 1 month later, we're not doing that anymore. We're doing this now because that doesn't work. This works. So yeah, I did huge deep dive, especially into a TikTok. And then I decided that TikTok is not for us and not for me. And I dived really deep into Instagram. So I really feel now like I have a really good understanding of Instagram, and I am teaching the vet rehabbers how to use Instagram to grow their practices and their online businesses. So I think that for me was a big goal tick. So it's going to be a continual goal, because it's not the kind of thing you can like become a master of, and you just got to keep up with it, you know? Yeah.
I think I love that you mentioned TikTok and Instagram, because I'm going to share something with you guys. So I have been digging my heels in with this whole TikTok thing for years. Meg has said, we need to get on TikTok. And I've said, no, we don't. And this year Meg won. She won. But yes, TikTok's been really fun. Like, we've just put out, I don't know, hundreds of reels on there, and I consistently get 100 views, and I think we have like 200 followers. So I think that now I have convinced Meg that we can just, you know, step away from TikTok, but we had to do it first.
we're just gonna let it tick over. Excuse the pun. Yeah. So, but you know, I think just chatting about TikTok, I'm not saying that it's not a good platform. I think it's a great platform for certain people, but it has to actually align with you. And I think for us, one of the things is we really value relationships at Onlinepethealth. And I actually think that's why TikTok didn't align with us so well, because we were unable to establish relationships on that platform. It's not one of those, it's more of a, you know, you put something out and people watch it, but they're not necessarily messaging you and commenting and you get to know them. Whereas on Instagram and Facebook, we very much like that. We have our followers on Instagram, they comment, we build relationships on there, we direct message them, and the same as Facebook. And that's why I think that for us, it wasn't our platform. But yeah, lots of other people have great success on it. And yeah, I'm not saying don't go there. It's just, it needs to align with you and your core values and who you are.
I mean, Meg, you've had success with TikTok. Like,
yes. I know, it used to make you so cross. Do you remember?
The life out of me. It's like you're getting hundreds and thousands of views and I don't know, and all these stats, and I'm like, well, great 100. I'm still sitting on 100 views, thanks. It's great.
And it's been so awesome chatting about the year. I sort of feel like we haven't even touched and reflected on our whole year, but I've loved what we shared, and I think that
mention the industry report, Meg, before we close this one.
That was actually in the beginning. Yeah, so let's chat about that, because that was actually my two things: Vet Rehab Summit for me and the Vet Rehab Industry Report, because that was a new thing that we decided to do. And we really did not know what we were getting ourselves into. So we had this idea of what we were going to do, and we created all these questions, and we got some help, we got some feedback, like, are these good questions? These are the things that we're wanting to find out. And you know, our reasoning behind the Vet Rehab Industry Report was to see actually where our profession is. Where are people struggling? Where are they doing well? Like, where can we support our vet rehabbers? You know, this was going to give us an idea of the state of the industry, basically. And I really think we achieved that, and more. So like the results that we got and the stats that we got from it, I think is really, really helpful. But saying that, it was a challenge, right? So one of the things we didn't realize is that in asking some of those questions, we needed to make sure that people couldn't have multiple different answers, which we didn't do. So it made the stats and the analyzing of the stats, which Ané did, really tricky. And Ané, I just want to say, like, I am absolutely amazed how much you have grown and you have learned about analyzing stats over the year. It took a few months, I know, and lots of frustration. And I know that there were times where you were like, I don't want to do this, I can't do this. And I was like, you know, Mission, I was like, this is a learning curve. This is like, you're going to grow from this, like, keep going. And you did it. You did it in the end. We had help. We did get some help from people. And so thanks to everyone that helped out with that. But I think it was really, really, really successful. So for me, we didn't plan it. I think we decided at the beginning of the year. So it wasn't like this is next year's goal. We just decided this is what we're going to do. And we were like, yes, let's do it. but it was hugely successful. And yeah, thank you to everyone that participated and put their answers in, because without you guys, we wouldn't have all this data. And now we know a whole lot of things that we can address, and we will be addressing internationally. And the IAVRPT, I know, is going to be addressing some of those issues that we've actually picked up from it.
I love that. Thank you, Meg. Yeah, that was one of the goals that we had, right? We actually had the goal to have 1,000 submissions, 1,000 vet rehabbers responding. Thank goodness we did not reach that goal. We only had 650, which is a lot. So that was awesome. But for me, I really wanted this to be about inspiring vet rehabbers to take action. We all have challenging things that are difficult for us in the industry, and identifying what they are and identifying the common challenges helps us figure out how to find the solutions for them. And I think that a lot of us are passionate about specific things, right? A lot of us will be passionate about the challenges of running a multidisciplinary team, for example. And if that's where your frustration and your passion lies, I hope that the industry report can give you some information that will help you bring change in your area and in your industry, because it is only when we all step up into the spaces that are frustrating or exciting to us that we can really bring change. It isn't about one or two people figuring out the answers to all the problems. It's about all of us coming together and stepping into that space where we feel challenged, frustrated, excited, whatever it is. That's the space you need to step up into. So that's what I'm hoping will come out of this in the longer term, and what I hope that you guys take out of it. Because it also highlighted to me that we're really not alone. We're not alone. Please read the industry report and let us know what you think. I'd love for you guys to actually share that with us. Let us know what you take out of the industry report, and also comment, post something on social media about your goals and what you've achieved. So let's do your achievements over the last year and celebrate them together, and tag us into that so that we can celebrate with you, because we want to.
We would love to celebrate all your goals. Yeah, that's a great idea. And for those of you that are interested in that Vet Rehab Industry Report, you can check. There'll be a link in the podcast description for that. Ané, thank you so much. It's been awesome chatting to you. I hope all of you are getting a little bit of a chance to have some time off. I know a lot of you will close between Christmas and New Year. So I hope that you're getting to spend some time just to relax, spend some quality time with your family. And if you've got extra time and you want to, maybe it's a little bit of learning on the Online Pet Health membership. Thanks, Ané. Lovely chatting.
Bye, Meg.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please hit the subscribe button so you get notified every time I load a new podcast. I'm here every week talking to vet rehab therapists from all over the world about all things vet rehab. A big thanks to our sponsor, Curacor. Their sponsorship allows us to be able to give this podcast to you for free. So please go and check them out at curacor.org. Don't forget to bookmark the next Vet Rehab Summit. It's on Saturday, the 31st of August, 2024. Come and be a part of the world's largest online veterinary rehabilitation conference created specifically for you, the vet rehabber community. Online Pet Health members get VIP complimentary access to the Vet Rehab Summit. For more information about continuing education for vet rehabbers, you can go to onlinepethealth.com.